Zoe Mitchell, 32 years old, an ER nurse at St. Augustine Hospital in Oregon, where sleepless nights and ambulance sirens have become the steady rhythm of my life for the past 8 years. But no shift, no matter how intense, could have prepared me for what I'm about to tell. Some things, when they happen, feel like a nightmare, until you wake up and realize there is no dream, it's all real. Before the storm hit, my life seemed stable. I lived with my daughter, Ellie, a bright 8-year-old with chestnut curls that refused to stay in place and a smile that could soften even the grayest day. I used to tell my friends, I don't have everything, but I have Ellie. And that's enough. I was wrong. My parents, David and Lorraine Mitchell, lived about an hour's drive from me. They were once the people I trusted most to care for Ellie when I worked overnight or during long emergency shifts. He was a former attorney, and she used to be an elementary school principal. After retiring, they moved closer to my younger sister Rachel, who lived in the Portland suburbs. The kind of neighborhood with perfectly trimmed lawns and families that looked like picture-perfect postcards. My family looked like that too, at least on social media. But outsiders never see the cracks under the paint. Rachel is 4 years younger, the type who always knows just what to say to please a room. She married early, had 2 kids, Caleb and Sophie, and became a part-time yoga instructor. Me? A single mom, perpetually tired, hair always in a messy bun, constantly having to explain why I couldn't make family parties between back-to-back shifts. My parents never said it outright, but I felt it. To them, Rachel was the right one, the daughter who knew how to please, throw birthday parties with custom cakes and hired photographers. I was the one who still needed help, the daughter who never quite grew up. I remember Caleb's 8th birthday like it was yesterday. The entire family gathered at a huge play center with superhero-themed backdrops and more food than anyone could finish. My mom fluttered around adjusting gift bags, chairs, and lighting for photos. The next week was Ellie's birthday. A small picnic in the park near our house because I had worked almost all night. I baked the cake myself, blew up a few balloons. My parents arrived nearly an hour late, bringing a clearance bin book set and a box of chocolates they said they grabbed from a rest stop. I taught myself to stay silent, to swallow the sting. At least they showed up, I told myself. But Ellie began to notice. After that party, she asked, "Oh, Mom, why do Grandma and Grandpa always get Caleb video games, but I only get books?" I froze. How do you explain to a child that even family can play favorites? I tried to defend my parents, saying, "Books are special too, sweetheart." But Ellie didn't say anything else. She hugged her worn-out teddy bear tighter and turned away. That night, I stayed up, not because of a patient, but because of my daughter's question. As she grew older, the differences became sharper. Every holiday, Rachel's kids got pumpkin pie made exactly the way they liked it. Ellie, who has a gluten allergy, was served whatever was on the table, even after I reminded my mom repeatedly. She waved it off. "Oh, I'm sure she'll find something she can eat." They didn't have to say Ellie mattered less than Caleb or Sophie. Their actions said enough. I tried talking to my mother after Thanksgiving last year. Ellie had quietly slipped into the car before dessert was even served. "Mom, I feel like you treat Ellie differently." She cut me off while polishing a wine glass. "Don't be so sensitive, Zoe. We love all our grandkids the same. But Rachel's just easier. She doesn't complicate everything." I was speechless. Complicated? Because I worked 12-hour shifts? Because I couldn't fake that everything was perfect? Maybe I should have seen it all sooner. Maybe I believed too much in the idea that blood meant love and responsibility. But until that note appeared on my kitchen counter, I never imagined my parents, the ones who once taught me about kindness, could turn their backs on their granddaughter for sunshine, sand, and a trip to Hawaii. That part comes later. For now, I need you to understand, most wounds don't begin with betrayal. They start with small cuts. Until one day you realize you're bleeding. I thought I had life all figured out. until the day I learned that truth isn't something you find in any medical textbook. Back then, I was 26, newly promoted as lead nurse in the ER at St. Augustine. My husband, Eric, was expanding his real estate startup. We got married just after I finished nursing school, when we were still living in a cramped studio apartment on the east side of Salem. He had a charming smile and the kind of confidence that made you believe every promise he made. Ellie was unplanned, but the moment she cried in that freezing delivery room and I looked into her eyes, I knew I had everything I'd ever need. 3 months after she was born, I returned to working night shifts. Eric promised he'd take over the rest, staying home with Ellie while I worked. I believed him. At first, I thought I was just tired. Untouched takeout in the fridge, shirt smelling of unfamiliar perfume, his phone always face down. I told myself he was just stressed from closing deals, until a coworker sent me a short video. Eric, at a pool party, feeding ice cream to a blonde woman in a red bikini. She laughed, leaning into his shoulder. People around them cheered. I stared at the screen. In the background, Ellie was being held by a stranger. Some hired sitter, I assumed. Nothing could justify that betrayal. No reason made it okay to bring my child to a place like that. I didn't scream. Didn't throw anything. I printed out the screenshot, left it on the dinner table, and waited until he came home late. Then I said one sentence. "Is this why you ignored 14 calls from me?" Eric froze. Then, predictably, he muttered, "I was just tired. She doesn't mean anything." The divorce took 3 weeks. He signed, he moved out, occasionally sent child support, when he remembered. When I asked about the missing $600 one month, he said he was restructuring the business and would pay when cash flow improves. I didn't wait. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment near the hospital, so Ellie could walk to Evergreen Elementary and I could be home in under 10 minutes if anything happened. No matter how late my shift ended, whether 3 a.m. or 7 p.m., I always told Ellie a story at bedtime. Not fairy tales, brave stories. And then we both shared one thing that scared us each day. "I'm scared my friend doesn't like me anymore," Ellie said once, staring at the ceiling. "I'm scared I made a mistake during a trauma code," I replied, brushing her curls. We hugged afterward. Nothing could undo what Eric left behind, but at least Ellie would always feel heard. Each morning, I woke her with the smell of cinnamon toast. We wrote 3 goals on the whiteboard. Laugh 3 times, help someone, and don't blame ourselves when things go wrong. I tried to keep Ellie's life light and kind. Even when, behind her bedroom door, I had to grit my teeth over unpaid bills or the sinus medication that wasn't covered by her insurance. At the first parent-teacher meeting of the year, Ellie's teacher, Mrs. Hannah, asked me a school. Ellie's very sensitive. She often helps classmates when someone's sad. The other day, a little girl cried because she missed her mom. Ellie gave her a teddy bear and said, "When moms go to work, they always come back." Sound familiar? I smiled, my throat tightening. Very familiar. I never meant for Ellie to become strong because life forced her to grow up too soon. I just wanted her to understand that even in a harsh world, there are still safe places. I would be one of them. But not everyone sees it that way. At Caleb's birthday party, my nephew, Rachel's son, my parents, asked, "Where's Eric? You should forgive him. Ellie needs her father." I let out a dry laugh. What kind of father takes his daughter to a pool while cuddling his mistress? My mother glanced at Rachel, then turned back to me, as if I'd pulled weeds at a funeral. "You always make things dramatic. Men mess up sometimes because they're overwhelmed." Rachel sighed sympathetically. "You could forgive him, for Ellie." I looked around the room, where my daughter played alone while Caleb and Sophie laughed around a pile of new gifts. I simply said, "Forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone keep hurting your child. It doesn't mean adults get to escape responsibility and expect a kid to learn how to cope." The mood sank, but I didn't care anymore. Because if anyone saw my protecting Ellie as a problem, then maybe they never truly loved her. We left the party before the cake was cut. Ellie didn't ask why. She just held my hand tightly in the car and whispered, "Mom, are you hungry? I saved 2 dinosaur cookies in my coat pocket." I nodded, smiling through the lump in my throat. In that tiny car under the cold Oregon night, I knew I wasn't alone. Not with Ellie beside me. Not while I still had the clarity to protect the only child who made me believe kindness still existed. On Monday night, as the hospital's wall clock ticked past 8:30, I got an urgent text from the shift lead. "Zoe, we need extra hands ASAP. Pile up on Highway 205. 11 patients. Next 3 night shifts will be brutal. Can you come in?" I didn't respond right away. Not because I hesitated about work, but because of Ellie. Our regular sitter, Miss Morgan, was in North Dakota, caring for her hospitalized mom. Nearby friends had toddlers or 9-to-5 jobs. I looked at my screen and quietly dialed my mother's number. "Hello, this is Mom. Mom, I need help." My voice didn't tremble, but each word felt like stepping onto thin ice. "What is it?" "The hospital's overloaded. They need me for 3 night shifts in a row. I have no one to watch Ellie. Can you?" Silence. The kind that reminded me what it felt like to be someone's last resort. "3 nights?" she finally asked, hesitant. "I'll have to. Check with your father." I heard a chair slide, a cup clink, then muffled whispering. At last, my dad spoke, dry and firm. "If you drop her off tonight, fine, but only until Friday morning. Not a minute later. I'll pick her up before school on Friday. Bring her toys. There's nothing here for kids." After the call, I rushed to get everything ready. Ellie was coloring on the rug, not questioning why I pulled out her purple suitcase. I packed pre-cooked meals into labeled containers. Morning dairy-free oatmeal, lunch, pasta with steamed chicken and butternut squash. Alongside them went allergy meds, nasal drops, lotion. Then her teddy bear, Clementine, the yellow blanket with galaxy prints, and her moon-shaped nightlight. I sat down and gently called her over. "Sweetheart, we're getting ready for a sleepover at Grandma and Grandpa's." Ellie looked up, her eyes lighting up slightly. "Are you working night shifts again?" I nodded. "I'll be back soon. We'll still video chat every night, and I'll tell you bedtime stories like always." She nodded. No tears, no fuss. Just hugged Clementine tighter. By the time we reached my parents' house, dusk had fallen. Their gray brick home glowed under porch lights. Lavender wafted from the front steps. Rachel once said it made guests feel relaxed. I parked, walked Ellie up the porch. My dad opened the door, shirt pressed crisp like it just came off the iron, eyes glancing quickly at the suitcase. "Drop her off and go, Zoe. It's getting cold." My mom appeared behind him, wearing a flour-dusted apron. Toasted bread filled the air from the kitchen. "Come in, Ellie. Grandma made raisin bread tonight." My daughter gripped my hand tight before letting go. I stepped inside, set the bags down, then turned to my mom. "Her allergy meds are in the front pouch. I wrote all the instructions. She has trouble sleeping without the moonlight, so—" "I know, Zoe." She cut me off, eyes fixed on her phone. "You always give instructions like I'm some hired nanny." I bit my tongue, turned to hug Ellie. As I bent down, I heard my father's voice from the living room. Low, but clear. "Better book that cab early. It's a waste if we miss the flight." I froze. I wasn't imagining it. My mom responded, softer. "Wait until Zoe leaves. It's just a few days. She doesn't need to know." I stood there, unseen, unacknowledged. What trip? I thought of Rachel, of those sunny beach photos from Cancun. Then told myself, maybe it's something later, after I pick Ellie up. I made myself believe that, maybe because there was no other choice. I bent down and kissed Ellie on the forehead, forcing a big smile. "Remember to brush your teeth before bed, okay? Clementine needs to sleep early too." Be careful at work, Mommy, she whispered, then wrapped her arms around me tight. I'll be good. I know Grandma and Grandpa don't like me being a bother. My heart sank. I couldn't find the words to argue. I walked out of that house feeling cold in my bones, even though it was only 58 degrees outside. Behind me, the porch light stayed on, and the door shut with a final thud that echoed like a sentence. I got into the car and looked at the rearview mirror. A strange unease rose inside me, like something was cracking. Not from a violent hit, but from small, silent fractures I had ignored for too long. I hit the gas and returned to my night shifts, still clinging to the belief that Ellie was sleeping peacefully under a safe roof. No one could have predicted that just 72 hours later I'd be sprinting through the halls of family services, searching for the child I had left in the care of those I thought I could trust. I was dressing a young boy's compound fracture from a pileup on Interstate 205 when the phone buzzed in my scrubs. The screen read, "Evergreen Elementary School calling." My heart skipped. I answered without removing my gloves. "Mr. Mitchell? Mrs. Albright from the Evergreen School office. Ellie didn't come in today, and we haven't received any notice of absence." I froze in the hallway. The sounds around me faded into static. "Excuse me. Ellie's with her grandparents. They drop her off every morning." "I'm sorry, but we haven't seen her, and no one called in." I ended the call, tore off my gloves, grabbed my bag, and ran out of the ER, ignoring the voices calling after me. The drive to my parents' house was barely 15 minutes, but my hands were shaking so badly I dropped the keys as I parked. The iron gate was locked. No cars in the driveway. I used the spare key and opened the front door. Inside, it was cold. No voices. No TV. No sound of a child laughing. He shouted, "Ellie, Mommy's here." No response. On the dining table in the clean kitchen was a folded sheet of printer paper. I picked it up. Neat handwriting, in my mother's familiar blue ink, read, "Zoe, we're sorry. We can't keep watching Ellie. We've arranged temporary guardianship until you're available again. They said you can contact Child Services for details." No number, no address, no name. My vision blurred. My knees nearly gave out. I gripped the counter to keep from collapsing. I called the Marion County CPS hotline. After 3 transfers, a woman picked up. "Yes." The file notes Ellie Mitchell was taken in by David Lorraine Mitchell last night. They reported being unable to care for her and no longer able to contact her parent. I clenched my jaw. I'm her legal mother. They were just helping for a few days. They knew I was picking her up Friday morning. She kept her voice calm. "We understand, ma'am, but protocol requires full verification. You'll need to come to the office with documentation to initiate reunification." With the paper still trembling in my hands, I drove straight to the CPS office in Salem. 3 hours of waiting, forms, birth certificate, passport, divorce decree, proof that I was Ellie's only legal guardian. Finally, I was led to a small room with harsh fluorescent lighting and plastic chairs. Ellie's caseworker was a woman named Lana. Messy curls, beige blouse, badge reading emergency caseworker. We placed Ellie in emergency foster care with the Kimballs in the southern outskirts. They're longtime partners with an excellent record. I couldn't breathe. "Is she okay? Does she know what's happening?" She was quiet when brought in. The intake report says she wasn't warned. The Mitchells simply left a note saying her mother would be gone for a while. My fists clenched. My chest burned. I nodded when told how to get to the Kimball's house. The car turned onto a dirt road that led to a white one-story home with a picket fence and a gently swaying porch swing. A middle-aged woman opened the door as I parked. She wore a gray cardigan, tired but kind eyes. "You must be Ellie's mom. I'm Martha Kimball. Come in. She's out back with my husband." I hurried through the hall into the yard. Under a maple tree, Ellie sat curled up, holding Clementine. Mr. Kimball sat beside her, speaking in a low, comforting tone. When Ellie looked up and saw me, She sprang to her feet and ran so fast she nearly tripped. I dropped to my knees and caught her in my arms. "I thought you weren't coming back." Her voice was no louder than a breath. I kissed her hair and whispered, "Nothing could ever keep me from you, nothing." We sat under the tree for a long time. Ellie told me, piece by piece, what she remembered. Being taken to an office with strangers, told by her grandparents she'd stay here because Mommy was too busy, that it might take a while. Grandma said, "Sometimes moms need a break from their kids." I held her tighter. That sentence cut deeper than any blade. Later, while Ellie napped on the Kimball's sofa, I picked up my phone. A notification from Instagram. @Rachel, family mom. Just posted a new photo. I opened it. My parents beamed at a beach in Hawaii with Rachel, her husband, and their kids. Bright floral shirts, coconuts in hand, a luxury resort behind them. The caption read in bold, "Surprise Hawaii trip. Family is the most precious gift." Ohana time, grandkids first. Beneath that cheerful photo was the image of Ellie, fast asleep in my arms, after surviving the betrayal of being handed off like lost luggage by her own grandparents. I set my phone down on the table, ice filling every inch of my body. No more doubt, only a cold, rising fury, tightening with every passing minute. I sat on the wooden chair next to Ellie's bed in the Kimball's home, the soft nightlight casting a gentle glow across her drowsy face. Her eyes still rimmed red. Her small hand clung to mine without letting go. Only after her breathing steadied did Ellie start to speak. "They took me in a white car. Grandma didn't say where. She just said, 'You needed rest.' Maybe for a long time." I swallowed the lump in my throat. I thought, was it because I left toys on the floor and made her mad? Or because I eat too slow? Or because I was bad so you didn't come back? I turned to her, leaning in close. "It's not your fault. None of that is the reason. No one has the right to tell you that." Ellie didn't answer. Her gaze drifted to the ceiling, blank, like a piece of her spirit had been pulled away. Mrs. Kimball brought in 2 mugs of herbal tea. I nodded a quiet thank you. She sat down on the other side of the bed, resting her hand on Ellie's shoulder. She wouldn't eat anything but crackers. We've tried to keep her routine as close to home as possible. I pressed my hand to my chest, took a breath, then opened my phone again. Instagram lit up with another post from Rachel. Second photo in the Hawaii trip album. My dad was helping Caleb snorkel in the ocean, my mom lounging under a palm tree, holding a deep red cocktail, her smile radiant as if nothing had ever gone wrong. I couldn't help caption, "Spending time with the best grandkids in the world. Dream trip. Long time in the making. Family time, blessed." I clenched the phone so hard my knuckles went white. Setting the mug down, I opened the comment section. My mother's old friends had left glowing messages. "Oh my gosh, so jealous. Those grandkids are so lucky. Lumberman small-town grandparents. Wish I were one of Lorraine's grandbabies. Wish I were one of Lorraine's grandbabies." While her real granddaughter slept in a stranger's house, abandoned like outdated luggage. Quietly, I saved the photo, screenshotted all the comments. Not just out of fury, but because I'd started thinking about proving everything. To the system, to the law, to justice. The next morning, after Mrs. Kimball took Ellie to the small backyard playground, I called CPS to request an update. I asked to speak with the original intake worker. The phone picked up after 3 rings. "We have on record that Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell didn't provide any details about the child's biological mother. On the intake form, they checked, 'Parent unavailable, cannot be reached.'" I bit down hard. Did they submit any documentation proving guardianship? No, only a verbal statement. In emergencies, caseworkers may proceed with temporary intake if they believe the child has no legal caregiver at that moment. I opened my laptop in the Kimball's living room, pulled up the folder with Ellie's birth certificate, my divorce decree, and legal custody papers. I sent everything to the office's email. Bing from Instagram. Rachel had posted a new story. The whole family was dining at a beachfront restaurant. She spun the camera around, showing my parents raising wine glasses. Rachel's voice chimed. Can't believe Mom and Dad dropped everything to come with us. People say greatest grandparents ever, and it's true. I saved the video and sent it straight to Lana Ellie's caseworker, along with a message. This is the exact time my daughter, Ellie, was under my parents' care and handed over to the system. Evidence of a pre-planned trip. They left while actively babysitting without contacting me. Less than an hour later, Lana called back. Her voice was more tense than before. We're launching an internal review of how this case was handled. Ms. Zoe, this is more serious than we initially realized. I didn't say anything, just nodded, though she couldn't see me. That afternoon, Ellie sat coloring with crayons. She was drawing Clementine and me, holding hands in front of a small house. I sat beside her. It's a beautiful picture. Is that our home? No. That's the safe place. You said where you are is home, so I thought. Anywhere you find me must be home. I kissed her forehead, speechless. That night, I contacted an old friend, Sophia, now a paralegal at the Polk County District Attorney's Office. I gave her a quick summary of everything. She listened quietly, then said, If you've got proof, photos, messages, intake reports, this isn't just child abandonment. It could be false reporting, deliberate misrepresentation to evade responsibility. Potentially criminal. I took notes. Then opened an old text from my mom. 2 months ago. Do you still need those A3 vitamins for Ellie? I grabbed some from the organic shop. There had been times they cared. But now, all I wanted was for Ellie to never again hear the words, "Your mom's too busy to come back." I set the phone on the table and stared at the file I'd just printed, using the Kimball's computer. Inside were screenshots from social media, old messages with my mother, the CPS intake confirmation, and the initial medical report from Ellie's first welfare interview. Every piece coming together like a puzzle. My parents had deliberately constructed a false narrative of an unfit mother to justify the cruelest act a relative could commit against their own grandchild. I called Sophia, my friend helping with the legal matters. She picked up right after the second ring. I need to take the next step. I want to file formal charges. There was a brief pause on the other end. Zoe, are you sure? This won't be just a family matter anymore. It was never just a family matter. This is my daughter. This is real harm. These are deliberate lies. Sophia arranged for us to meet the next morning at the Salem Police Department to file the report. I brought every document, including an audio recording of Ellie's therapy session, where, with the psychologist's permission, I captured her saying that her grandparents told her I had gone for a long time and might not come back. The officer assigned to the case was Lieutenant Bryant, someone I'd worked with during a past emergency call involving child abuse. He remembered me. His face slowly darkened as he reviewed the transcripts and photo evidence. There are clear signs of knowingly providing false information to authorities and abandoning a minor. Given the intentional nature and lasting psychological effects on the child, this could rise to the level of a criminal offense. Sophia added. There's also the element of unlawful transfer of custodial care while fully aware the child has a legal guardian, which Zoe can prove with paperwork. I sat silently, my hand clenching my purse strap. There was no satisfaction in this, only a sense of fury carried by duty. 3 days later, I got a call from the Honolulu Police Department where my parents were staying with Rachel and her family. Sergeant Naomi Fujimoto, who was coordinating with local authorities, told me they located my parents at a beachfront resort in Maui. We approached them early this morning, around 7:10. They were having breakfast on the balcony, overlooking the ocean. Their initial reaction was shock, followed by denial. I asked, were they cooperative? Naomi let out a soft sigh. Mr. David Mitchell insisted he was doing what was necessary after being unable to reach his daughter and felt he should be praised for being responsible. Mrs. Lorraine broke into tears, claiming, "Everything is being misunderstood." I said nothing. Naomi continued, "We recorded the entire interaction with resort security present. Our team will be collecting additional evidence from your end, including screenshots of social media posts and the timeline matching their presence in Hawaii with the date Ellie was handed to the system. I opened my email, attached the entire archive I'd prepared, and included a detailed description of each piece. As I hit send, my phone buzzed. A new message from Rachel. "What the hell are you doing? The cops showed up and scared Madison to tears. Do you really need to destroy your family just to prove a point?" I didn't respond. Then came a voice message. "Zoe, I know you're upset, but this is too much. Mom is breaking down, Dad's on blood pressure meds. Ellie's fine. This was all just a misunderstanding. Please drop the charges." I turned off the screen and laid the phone face down. Across the room, Ellie was folding paper stars, her nose wrinkled in concentration as she fixed a crooked edge. She had no idea that a storm was swirling outside because of a decision no 8-year-old should ever have to endure. That night, while washing dishes, Mrs. Kimball quietly said, "Zoe, I've served as a temporary guardian for 6 children. Ellie is the first who ever asked me if she'd been returned by someone." I froze. She didn't ask because she was sad. She asked because she believed it was the obvious answer. I lifted my head, my eyes red but dry. The next morning, Sophia and I met with the deputy prosecutor to file formal charges. 3 counts: child abandonment, falsifying information to authorities, and unlawful misuse of custodial rights. Even if it meant facing my parents in court, even if it meant dismantling the illusion of a model family they tried to uphold. Because the only thing worth protecting was that little girl. The one who still believed I'd always come back, even if no one else did. Less than 48 hours after filing, the phrase Hawaii grandparent case began trending on social media. A tourist who witnessed the police at the resort posted a TikTok with the caption, "Cops knocking on the door of grandparents who ditched their granddaughter for a vacation with the favorite child. Model family vanishes." The video racked up over 300,000 views overnight. Hashtags like "Justice for Ellie" popped up beneath related posts. A local Oregon news outlet picked up the story. Grandparents accused of abandoning grandchild for Hawaiian vacation. Mother says, "I won't let this go." The shiny facade my parents built began to crack wide open under the Hawaiian sun. The hearing took place at the Marion County Courthouse. All parties were present for the preliminary session. I entered the courtroom with my attorney and Ellie, who held my hand tightly, silent as a fading star in a stormy sky. My mother sat at the defendant's bench, panic bleeding through her pale makeup. My father wore a gray suit, trying to appear composed but fiddling with his coat hem nonstop. Judge Roberta Kingsley, known for her tough stance on child cases, didn't waste time. "Mr. David Mitchell, Mrs. Lorraine Mitchell, records show you handed over Ellie Mitchell, 8 years old, to Child Protective Services without parental consent or medical emergency, despite the biological mother being reachable and scheduled to resume custody as planned." No one said a word, no apologies. "Furthermore," the judge continued, voice steady, "investigation reveals the Hawaii trip was not a mental health escape, but a prearranged vacation, tickets booked 6 weeks before the incident." She paused, her gaze piercing. "Your actions are not merely irresponsible, they are a betrayal of a child." The verdict: 1 year of probation, 300 hours of supervised community service at a child care center, mandatory completion of a 6-month family counseling course, and no contact with Ellie without written consent from me and her therapist. My father lowered his head. My mother sobbed, mascara streaking down her face, but not a single tear moved me. Rachel didn't show up. She only sent a message. "Are you happy now, dragging the whole family through the mud just to prove who's right?" I didn't reply. Week after the trial, Evergreen School held a parent meeting. When I arrived, some people whispered, others glanced sideways. One mom came up to me, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. I read the article. "Standing your ground to protect your child like that? I admire you." I thanked her, heart heavy. There were no victories here, only consequences. Ellie slowly stabilized thanks to consistent therapy. She began drawing more, mostly images of space, spaceships, and planets with smiling faces. One afternoon, she handed me a drawing of Earth with scribbled words, "My safe place is with Mom." I hugged her tightly, and for the first time in a long while, I could take a full breath without feeling torn apart. One afternoon in May, Rachel unexpectedly called. I hesitated a few seconds before answering. "Zoe? I'm sorry." Her voice lacked the coldness from past texts. "Jackson asked why Grandma and Grandpa didn't take Ellie to Hawaii, even though there was room in the car. He said if she were his sister, he'd never leave her behind." I stayed silent. I tried to believe Mom wasn't that bad, that you were overreacting, but maybe I just chose what was easier instead of facing the truth. I softly said, "No one wants to believe someone they love can do something cruel. You don't have to forgive me, but let me make it right. I want to start with Ellie." I arranged to meet her at the counseling center where Ellie received therapy. The first meeting was short and tense, but later Ellie whispered to me, "I think Aunt Rachel means it." I didn't teach my daughter to forgive quickly. I just told her, forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation. I was still learning that too. News about the case gradually faded over 2 months, but the aftermath lingered. My mother resigned from the church's parent board. My father returned the Model Family Award from the County Bar Association. Everything they built on reputation crumbled, not because of me, but because of themselves. I felt no satisfaction, just resolve to ensure Ellie grows up knowing that silence doesn't mean consent, that nothing is more valuable than her understanding. She is never someone extra in anyone's life, especially not in mine. June moved slowly but steadily. Ellie continued her sessions with Dr. Miranda Evans twice a week. At the first one, she barely spoke, just clutched Clementine and nodded or shook her head. By the fourth session, she brought a drawing. A house with a red roof, 2 lit windows, and a mom hugging a curly-haired girl on the porch. "This is my house," Ellie said, handing the paper to Dr. Miranda. "This place never shuts the door on me." That session ended with a hug from the doctor. I stood silently in the hallway, overwhelmed. The cracks inside Ellie were slowly healing, not by magic, but through love and persistence. Around the same time, the hospital where I worked held an internal review on crisis management following a major highway accident. Jennifer, our department head, called me into a private meeting Thursday afternoon. "Zoe, I've watched how you've managed work and family these past 3 months. Not everyone could stay this steady and still handle trauma cases." I sat silently, unsure of her point. "We need someone to train incoming staff for our new procedural reform program. If you're interested, the role includes a 20% raise, expanded benefits, and, most importantly, more flexible shifts." I nodded. No need to think. The opportunity came not from pity, but from earned recognition. That evening, I told Ellie the news. She was building a Lego Mars rover and looked up, asking, "Does that mean no more night shifts?" "No. I'll be teaching others how to do this job well now, so I'll be home more in the evenings." Ellie smiled slightly and said something that tightened my chest. "I like nighttime with you. That's when I worry the most." I began rearranging our life. No more rushed dinners, no more 3 a.m. alarms. Instead, Ellie and I baked oatmeal cookies, planted lavender on the porch, and held art contests themed around outer space. One evening, Judith, Eric's mother, my ex-husband's mom, visited. She brought an old telescope and set it up in the backyard. When Ellie was little, Eric once promised to get her a telescope. He forgot. But I didn't. I was surprised by her sudden appearance, but Ellie ran to hug her without hesitation. Not all adults are cruel. And family isn't something beyond revival. Judith stayed for dinner. While peeling apples, she looked at me, her voice low. "I used to think Zoe was just an ordinary nurse, raising a child in hardship. I was wrong. A woman who can carry that much pain and still raise her child with grace is someone to be proud of." I didn't hide my smile. I saw respect in her eyes. Not for status, but for how I faced adversity. In August, the court called for another open hearing, with participation from a psychologist and community representatives. The purpose was to reassess whether Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell could have contact with Ellie, per their attorney's request. I was allowed to let Ellie speak if she agreed. After 2 private sessions with Dr. Miranda, Ellie asked to do it. At court, when called to the stand, Ellie took small but steady steps. She wore a white dress, hair neatly tied, still holding Clementine in her hand. "My name is Ellie Mitchell. I'm 8 years old. I don't understand everything grown-ups say, but I remember clearly how it felt being taken to a strange place with no one explaining anything." The courtroom fell silent. I thought I was being returned for doing something bad. Grandma said maybe Mom wasn't coming back. I thought Mom didn't want me anymore. My father stared down at the floor. My mother pulled out a tissue, but said nothing. Ellie continued, her voice calm. "Now I know now my mom would never leave me. I've met grown-ups who make me feel safe, and some who don't. I'm learning how to forgive. But forgiving doesn't mean I have to be near the ones who made me hurt." That sentence landed like a silent slap in the middle of the courtroom. Judge Kingsley thanked Ellie, then concluded, "Contact between the Mitchells and Ellie would only be permitted with Ellie's consent, supervised by a third party, and approved by her therapist." That night, after taking Ellie home, I stood on the porch with Judith. She looked up at the sky and said, "My granddaughter is strong, just like her mom." I stayed quiet. A crescent moon hung above us. Inside, Ellie lay reading her favorite book about space, peaceful as if the wounds had never happened. My family was no longer in a Christmas photo album, no longer bound by "we share blood, so we must forgive." My family now included Kelly, the one who brought hot soup to the hospital when I couldn't eat, Mrs. Kimball, who took Ellie in when my world collapsed, and Judith, who made quiet amends for her son through action. Zoe's story is a painful but powerful testament to this truth. Not everyone who bears the title of family deserves your trust. Betrayed by her own parents, she didn't fall. She chose to stand up, protect her daughter, and fight for justice. That journey not only helped Ellie heal from trauma, but allowed Zoe to build a new family, not based on blood, but on kindness, safety, and real love. In real life, sometimes we must choose our family with the heart, not the bloodline. What do you think about Zoe's decision? Could you forgive under those circumstances? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about family, trust, and the strength to overcome.